You probably cheated on somebody in
Do
sixth
you
grade.
think I had a girlfriend in sixth grade? Dude, I had a computer in sixth grade. This is actually a good start. Hi everybody. I'm Tom. I'm the designer in this duo, and today my random fact that I'm going to share is that I used to have extremely long curly hair back in the day that I had hair, and you'll see why this is on topic for today.
Hi, I'm Mario. I'm the developer in this duo, and my random fact for today is that today is my youngest child's second birthday. So, Marietta, happy birthday. And why is that significant? It's significant because it means that in 16 years, none of them are going to be living in this place, and I'll have the whole house to myself and party like a true 55-year-old person should. Hell
It's
yeah!
funny to think that you believe that your child will move away at 18.
My child will be softly pushed to explore the world on her own
Said
at
every parent
18.
ever.
And when I say softly push, I mean softly pushed with a shoe sized 49 that will be attached to my foot.
And then average move out year of a child in crash, I think, is over 30. So 35.
35. We are actually top in
Nice.
Europe.
But the topic for today is the evolution of design and development and how industry has changed over the past 2 decades. So it was actually a topic that was suggested to us by ChatGPT version 4 that we tried out yesterday. And nothing tells us how old we are than actually being suggested this topic by an AI, which is great. And I kind of am interested to see will any of our younger listeners have interest in this. But I'm sure we have a lot to talk about on this topic, and I'll let you take the first stab at it.
Yeah, this will be full of nostalgia. And back in my days, things were much,
Tell us,
much
Grandpa, how was the
better.
internet in the olden days?
The internet in the old day was. Yeah. If you can find the sound of the modem and then play it now,
Yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
it
That's how the
played. I
internet
did
was.
this in editing. It played. But funny thing is about internet sound is when I got my first modem, I think I was around 13, 13 at the time or something like that. And I didn't know how to turn off that sound. I didn't know that you could actually turn off the audio part of connecting to the internet. So when I wanted,
You can actually turn off the audio part of connecting
yes,
to the internet. Where were you 20 years
exactly.
ago?
So 25.
25
Yeah.
years
So
ago.
the thing now, okay, you didn't know as well. I'm interested in if anybody else knew. But yes, you can turn it off in modem settings. There's like an audio notification or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but you can turn it off. And it took me too long to learn that. It took me at least a couple of months. But when I was going online in late at night when my parents were sleeping, I would put pillows around my computer case so to dampen the sound, and it didn't always work. And then I realized later when I grew up that my parents actually knew that I was connecting to the internet and just didn't care. They were like, "Yeah, let him think he's a ninja that thinks that we don't hear it." But yeah,
No, but it's awesome. I mean, I was lucky to have parents that encouraged my interest in computers and got me a computer and then got me a modem and then got me all of that stuff. And that's awesome. And that's why today I'm here where I am. So, Mom, Dad, I'm not sure if I should thank you now or if I should hate you, but
you should
that's,
thank them. I thanked my
I don't know
parents
how that part
multiple
works.
times, and I talked about this, and I said, "My mom, thank you," but I'm so happy that they put me on a right track. Especially my mom, who kind of saw, okay, these computer things are going to be the future, so let's buy him a computer and see what he does with it. And it was a lot of gaming in the early days, of course, but then later on, it kind of became a thing, and I realized I can make some money off of it.
Yeah, but I mean, even when you start, all of the kids, of course, start with games, and all of the kids start with gaming, and I started with games as well. But then you kind of figure, okay, now I need to. So when I started, my computer was MS-DOS with Windows 3.1. And you had to change directories manually with the cd command. But then you learned, okay, now it has a tree structure, so I can make this directory games, then in it I can make subdirectory for each game. Okay, now I know how to organize my files. Then you learn copy, then you delete, then you learn archiving, because we still had floppy disks and you couldn't put anything on one floppy disk, so you had to learn how to archive a big chunk of files over a course of multiple floppy disks and things like that. So with all of that desire to actually learn to get to a place where you can start a game, you had to learn how stuff works. And the more you are familiar with it, the easier it gets. I'm looking at my kids now, and they were born basically with access to mobile phones and tablets, and they are completely, for me it's like difficult, to type on a touchpad keyboard and all of it. They're born with it. Their initial reactions are like two 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 two. They know everything, where everything goes, automatically, intuitively. Nobody taught them. They just took it in their hands and understood it. That's the way we were thrown at computers, pretty much. And it's a great thing. And of course, I also started, playing games. I started drawing in Microsoft Paint. I started writing in WordPad and things like that. But then you get a feeling, okay, this is a cursor, this is how you select stuff. When you do something, it only works on the selected part and all of that. So you learn how to use general UIs of software, and that's an amazing thing, especially when you're a kid. And it gives you a head start when you actually start learning something serious.
I had a topic last year on an event called Product Unleashed in Brighton, and I talked about how kids today, especially the kids who are currently like in grade school, finishing school, are not going to be a PC power users like we are, because like you said, everything's on touch, everything's on the screen, and even today a lot of parents don't own a PC anymore. It's, if you look in hindsight, we were the generation that grew up with a computer became a thing, was the thing that you have in your house, and then it went away. And now it's, in best case scenario, it's maybe a laptop, but even if that, it's mostly everybody's on a phone and their laptop. And we have children that are now like the TikTok generations, the early teens who are going to high school now. They're gonna enter the workforce in a couple of years, and they don't know how to use a mouse and a keyboard. And a lot of work software today is still on a mouse and a keyboard. If you're not in digital marketing and social networks, everything else is still using a mouse and a keyboard. And I've seen firsthand kids that are at that age. When I was using a mouse and a keyboard, I was pretty good at first person shooters and I could nail a headshot, but they are struggling with mouse and a keyboard. And of course the consoles games are way better. Everybody's, even if they're playing on console games, so they are not as apt in using a mouse and a keyboard, which is interesting to see. And it's gonna be challenging for them, I think, to enter a workforce where they get an office job and they will be presenting with a keyboard with a numpad and a mouse, and here you go, manage. So I kind of believe that the products in B2B world are lagging to an extent behind modern apps for social networks and media and all that stuff. And I haven't seen anybody like working actively on that. Like, how can we bring these types of apps? Like, you still need a mouse and a keyboard for Excel, and how will, like, what are we doing? Like, I have no idea what's going on. It's just an interesting topic that I've been thinking about and talking to product designers, but I haven't figured out a solution yet.
So this is more of a problem for your branch than mine. So this is more of a UX design issue. Thank God, because that's not something I would like to tackle with. But it will at one point become necessary to explain to clients, listen, this is how we used to do it. There are libraries for all of this in forms and everything that use a keyboard. But if you want to be inclusive to new generations, you might want to think about this. And it has to change by designers implementing new best practices of UX. But then it will also require me to change my mindset about automatically implementing all of those practices and communicating to my clients that those practices are best. Going back to one of the earlier episodes, I don't know UX design, I don't know UI design, but I know some of it and I know the basics of it, and I want to understand the basics concept of it so that I can tell my clients, hey, this is a best practice that I know of. If you want more details, I'll get Tom on the call and then he'll tell you why they are why they are the thing that needs to be done. But this mind switch is maybe something that we'll have to do on one end. On the other end, maybe somebody's probably done some measurements and some testing if working on a touch screen and if working without a keyboard can actually be as fast as working with a keyboard. With the current, for example, in software development, with the current way we develop software, it cannot come even close. Not even with the, voice to speech and speech to text and all of that. You are still much, much, much faster with the keyboard and all the shortcuts and everything. So I don't know when or how that will become a thing. But this is your problem. You designers,
Maybe
solve it.
if you've seen the demo of the latest ChatGPT, maybe it will be just speaking to it and telling it like, this is what I want. Give me an API for blah blah blah, and then it will be down to a developer to understand the code, to read it, and then just edit and fine tune it based on the output it gets. Maybe it will not require any more heavy coding, especially in a couple of years. The further I think, like somebody wrote somewhere that developers are writing themselves out of a job, which is a good and a bad thing. But if you remember that movie, the original one, The Time Machine, from I think late 60s, when he goes really far away in the future and he comes and everybody's just enjoying life, but nobody has any idea how anything works. And he asks, do you have any books? And he's like, yeah, we have books. And everything just turned to dust and everybody forgot everything. So I think there's okay, I'm going to mention, since we talked about last time about positive bullying and positive gossip or whatever it is, a guy that I know called Albert, he runs the Circuit Mess, and Circuit Mess is a great... Hey Albert,
Hey,
hope you're
Albert.
listening. Circuit Mess is a great company that makes STEM boxes for kids to learn coding and to learn electrical engineering and stuff like that. And I read on their website that less than 100% of humans have the ability and knowledge and capacity to develop new technology and know how stuff works, which is, I think we need to work on that. But I think the STEM boxes that Circuit Mess is doing are a great thing. But anyway, to come back to the topic of the technology and its evolution, when we talked about keyboards, the first time I was introduced to a keyboard was my aunt's husband had a Spectrum 48K, so Spectrum Sinclair 48K with a rubber keyboard. And to run a game, you should have typed in load, and I think it was load quotation marks, and then play the tape on a radio, hit enter, and let it load. And I was still a kid; I didn't understand much in words of how BASIC worked, but there was a book to learn BASIC, and you could retype what it was in book in your computer, and then it could run a game. It was like a simple tic-tac-toe game, but that was my first introduction to development. I think I was like 9 or 10 years old, and there was in the mid 90s there was a radio show in Croatia that basically played bootlegged pirated games over radio. So like at 2 a.m. they would play this screeching noise that you could record and then basically load a game, which is hilarious. I had to explain to my grandma why she needs to wake me up at 2 a.m. so I could record this noise from the radio so I could play a game tomorrow. That was a very interesting time, but I think we came a long way from then.
No, we're still the same. My first introduction to actual software development, a friend of mine used to own a Commodore 64, and it could run BASIC. So he would tell me, we would come to his house and then he would show me how he programs. And his program was, hey, what is your print? Hey, what is your name? And then input a string and then print, hello, string. Who is your girlfriend? And then you would have to type in girl, and it would tell you in print, all of the records are being deleted right after the program runs. And then in the end, after you would answer all your questions about your girlfriend, it would just say print, all of the data is saved, ha ha ha, I tricked you. Of course, it wasn't saved. We didn't know how to save to a file. We were like, fourth grade. But that's my introduction to programming. And then when I got my first computer, I first started doing logo, the program language logo with a turtle that you can tell forward, right, left, and it draws. And then when I figured out basic, okay, you can print stuff, you can input stuff. That was awesome. And then, but it's funny. I was trying to understand the if command, like if condition. And okay, if A is less than 5, then write this number is smaller than 5. That part was easy. But then I saw there were operators, and you could use or and end and stuff like that. So I was doing like if if A equals 4 or 5, then do something. Syntax error. If A equals 4 or 5, do something. Syntax error. Could never understand why that syntax error was there when I was a kid. You had to, of course, write if A equals 4 or A equals 5, which is logical now from today's point of view. I could never understand that when I was a kid, so it took me like literally months to figure that out. But the fun fact is, recently in one of their last implementations, C# introduced that if A equals 4 or 5 is not a syntax error anymore, and it can actually parse it, and it actually works.
It took them only 25 years.
So I was ahead of my time. I was ahead of my time.
When was your first kind of coin dropping moment when you realized that you can actually have a career or make money out of this that you've been doing since you were a kid?
That's actually a good question. So when we were kids, there was in my primary school, there was 4, maybe 5 of us that really enjoyed playing with computers. If anybody is listening, Dario, Nermin, Jare, and Ivo, if you guys are listening, woohoo! So we made companies, we made cheese software that developed software, and we were all talented in math, we were all talented in computers, and we were cool. We were not cool, but we were cool with having fun with that. And then it started getting more complex and complex and complex. I can't tell you the exact moment that I said, okay, I want to do this for a living, but I kind of always knew I want to build. I fell in love with it at one point, and I always knew I want to build software for a living. The fact that you actually do something and then you play it and then it works and then somebody is happy with it was amazing.
Yeah. It's still amazing.
Still
Yeah,
is
I was
amazing.
about to say that. Yeah.
Just the level of complexity changes. The level of complexity changed from like, printing all the even numbers to I don't know, developing a software for managing a company of 60 people. But the fact that you click play and it works and people type in stuff and they get the result they want is still there and still amazing.
Exactly. First website I ever built was in high school, first grade of high school. There was like a HTML workshop type of thing. And the IT teacher kind of took his own personal time to teach this thing that he wanted to show the kids. And I attended, learned some basic HTML. It was pretty cool. And then I built a website professing love to a girl that I knew, with her photos and like creating this little page and I wrote a poem, and it was horrible. And then I hosted it on
It's a bit creepy. Just a
Yeah,
little bit.
but I hosted it on a free hosting online, and then I sent her the link, and it was she didn't know how to react. She was like, "Oh yeah, thank you, that's weird," but but then I haven't. Yeah, let's
Let's
stay
stay
friends.
friends.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you're my best friend who does my websites for me. Thank you. and and then it was a couple of years of like I did some minor stuff, but never it crossed my mind that I could like charge for this. I had a Counter Strike clan and build a website for that, and then after high school, dad's friend he had a store for something, and he was like, "Oh, I need a website." And my dad was like, "Oh, my son talked about this. Maybe he can do your website for it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, of course I can." I had no idea about building a web shop or a store, especially back then in early 2000s. But I gave it a go. It wasn't pretty great. He was not happy with it. Obviously, I was still a kid, and he gave me like equivalent of $20 for like, ah, give it a shot. Like there you go, buy ice cream or whatever. And then I was like, oh shit, I could. People actually pay good money for this, $20. Oh my god, this is amazing. And then I was more into Photoshop and shit like that, and doing wallpapers with planets and stars and whatever. And after high school, I got a job in a local pub, attending the bar, and there was a local band playing. So I was like, I'm gonna create like a poster because I know this Photoshop thing. So I'm gonna create a poster for the band, and we're gonna put it up on the window of the bar, and then people are gonna see it. And I did it, printed it out. My mom printed it out at work, and I put it there. And then there was the guy was like, "Oh, great! How much did you pay for the design?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't pay for it." They're like, "I did it. It was like I made this." And they're like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "What do you mean pay? Like, what do you mean pay? Like, you want like people
People
pay for
pay
this?
for
Like
this.
people? But I've been doing this on my computer since forever. I love doing this. Like, why would people pay? I would do this for free if somebody give me thing to work on." And then it was kind of like maybe there's something there. And like a year later, I found my first job being a designer. I just design is a thing. Went to college, started learning the thing, read a couple of books, realized, you know what, this is stupid. I'm going to drop out and get a job, and got a job. Quit in 6 months and started my company. That was I'm better and smarter than everybody.
Woo!
I wasn't, by the way. I was I failed miserably, but uh, but that's what I thought.
Of course. That's what you're supposed to think when you're
Yeah,
like 20. That's your job to think that you're smarter than
yeah,
everybody else when
exactly.
you're 20.
That's yeah. It's your job to think that you're smarter and better than everybody, and then it's your then that's your chance to prove it. And then if you don't fail, amazing. If you fail, you learn something and you can go forward. But yeah,
I was just about to say your obligation is to
exactly.
fail and to learn.
And in my first job, I actually learned. So the guy that was a senior designer in the company. So I was hired as a designer in general. There was no back then. There was no web designer, graphic designer, print designer, UX designer, UI designer, this designer, that designer. It was your designer, whatever. Figure it out. And the company was doing everything from websites to marketing materials, print stuff, whatever. And the guy working there, amazing guy called Dario. He taught me WordPress. That was WordPress like it was a new thing that came out. So it was like a CMS that was better than Joomla, and I knew only Joomla back then. So he was like, "Have you seen WordPress?" I was like, "No idea. What is that?" It's a brand new thing that it's more easy to build and easy to build a template for it and easy to publish stuff, and it's not as complicated and it's cool. So he showed me how that works, and then I was like, I need to learn a bit of PHP because I wasn't a developer, but in order to build a template within WordPress, you needed to know at least basics of PHP and how some stuff works. So I kind of went through an online down and dirty quick course on PHP just to figure out how that works. And then somebody made a tutorial on understanding the template structure of WordPress templates. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. I know how to do this. I'm starting my own company and I'm going to be amazing. And then I didn't. But I built website for a while. And then CSS came out, CSS2 and responsive design started to become a thing, and depending on the screen size and whatever. So I went really into front-end development for a while, doing that. And there was a designer, two designers, Lucian and Emanuel Blagonic, who were doing some really awesome stuff in terms of web design, and they worked with WordPress. And then I attended one of their workshops where it kind of leveled up my understanding of what is actually possible with WordPress and with good understanding on front end. Then it leveled up my game, and then I started doing that for a year, and it was really great. But I still use WordPress now for Jesus almost 12 years later, and it come such a long way since then, and it's so good. And just the sheer simplicity of building a website, that you have an idea, you drop stuff in, and it works. I'm so happy with it. I would never go back to manually coding stuff anymore if it's not some high-end proprietary, very specific, very niche thing for a client. This is really good enough for the 99% of stuff on the internet.
So, WordPress is good if you use it for what it's meant for. If you have a website with dynamic content that follows templates, WordPress is your thing. Do it, use it, and that's going to work perfectly. I have a blog. My blog has articles. It has static pages. It has a contact form, and WordPress is perfect for it. And I would never think of using anything else for that but WordPress, because WordPress does that. There are people who say, yeah, I need a dynamic web shop with multiple shopping carts that allow you to have users, and then all of the loyalty club, and then that loyalty club will connect to a third-party system, which will send emails through, and I'm going to build all of that on WordPress. Don't. You probably can, but don't. Or at least if you decide to, don't expect it's going to be like bam, bam, bam out of the box. If you're going to connect 20 different systems with 50 different plugins through WordPress, it's going to take time and effort, and you need somebody who knows what they're doing.
No, you're absolutely right. There's really a sea of amazing plugins for WordPress, and basically it's not even WordPress anymore. Now it's just WordPress is just a platform that you connect stuff into, especially web shops and stuff like that, and it works. But I think that it's a good thing, especially if you're bootstrapping, and then you don't have, like, I cannot afford Mario to build a proprietary thing for me that connects to a lot of things, because Mario's expensive. Mario knows his stuff. It's going to be great product, great app. It's going to be fast. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be simple to use. Mario's going to bring in Tom onto the project to build an amazing user experience, and customers going to love it. And that's all great, but that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And someone who's building a simple online web shop for mom and pops, hand crochet, whatever they're selling, I think this is good enough. So, but it works. But it also, I think a lot of people have an unrealistic expectations when they want to build something amazing on WordPress, and then it's slow. It doesn't scale really well. So if at some point you start to making a lot of money, think about redoing it properly. Don't drag it for too long, because it's going to get to a place where then it's going to be too expensive to change it.
But it's also going back to the topic of the difference in the industry between like 20 years ago and now. 20 years ago I started with HTML, and I learned CSS, and it was a pain, because back then we used to have Internet Explorer, not Edge, but Internet Explorer. And not only Internet Explorer, you used to have Internet Explorer 5, then Internet Explorer 6, then Internet Explorer 7, and then Internet Explorer 8, and then the versions above 8. Why do I single out these 4 versions? Because each of the version, for one reason or another, and I couldn't explain you these reasons if you were to torture me, had a different interpretation of CSS. Why would somebody have an interpretation of a CSS if a CSS is a standard explained in a document called the HTML and CSS standard? Why would somebody interpret it differently in 4 different versions? For the love of God, I cannot explain it, but that's how things used to be. So you would have to write CSS, and then you would have to write CSS for Internet Explorer. And then you would have to write CSS for another version of Internet Explorer. So I don't know if you, whoever is a developer, they've probably seen the exclamation mark important attribute, I guess, in CSS, where you say use this to override any existing rule because I say so, and use this not to allow any other rule to override me. Well, the important attribute was used back then, so you could write this is normal code, use the important, and then this is code for Internet Explorer, but because Mozilla and Netscape back then used to follow standard, they would include the important section and Internet Explorer wouldn't. So you could actually use the important one to say, use this for normal browsers and then use this for Internet Explorer. And it was a freaking pain. Just to give you an example, in HTML, you have an element. If it has a padding is the amount of space that the element is going to have inward before the content starts. Except in Internet Explorer 5, 6, 7, and 8, where padding is the amount that we will widen the element so that it has a padding on the inside. So if your element was positioned here, it would remain positioned here in Mozilla, but in Internet Explorer it would widen and it wouldn't fit anymore. And it was annoying. So I noticed that myself. I hate CSS. I hate it. I understand it. I can write it. I'll deliver it. It's okay, but I don't really like doing it. And I'm not the best at it, of course. And I noticed that a lot of people from my generation are not liking it as much. And this is probably primarily because we used to learn in these conditions where it didn't work as expected and you had to write it 2 times and you had to pay attention to all sorts of things that you don't have to pay attention to now. We recently hired a colleague who loves to get his design to look and function beautifully. And he takes CSS and does it, and he likes it. And he's like, yeah, what's the problem? I mean, I write it and it works. And I was like, well, yeah. Nowadays,
you lucky motherfucker.
Yeah,
But
lucky
actually,
bastard.
so first of all,
So
I wasn't even aware how much of suppressed trauma I have because of this, that you now resurfaced. Because I've bottled it up and then put it away in a shelf deep down that I never access. So it's CSS and my dog dying, and that stays in the same room on the same shelf that I'm not touching, right? These are emotions that we do not open up. And now that you started talking about it, just triggered so many bad memories of writing CSS for every different Internet Explorer, but also Opera and Firefox and Chrome and Netscape, and it was so frustrating. And I think this is one of the reasons why I was averted away from exploring development further. That kind of nudged me more towards design, because I don't want to deal with this. This is frustrating. This is not bringing me joy anymore, because I know what I want to achieve, and then I have to break my back to achieve something that should be way easier. And I remember when Flexbox came in CSS, that made life so much easier for everyone. And I think Bootstrap, when it launched with their column designs, it was very good boilerplate for a lot of stuff. But then for a while we had all of the websites looking the same because everybody was using the same boilerplate. But that kind of made it easier, but it was still frustrating to a degree. And then I said, you know what, I'm just going to focus on design. Attended a couple of talks and workshops from other designers where I learned about user experience and how I can shape the look and feel and what customers go through within an app. And then there are talented people who love this that can deliver what I figure out, then I said, okay, I'm gonna be in the more problem solving space. And now actually I'm rethinking, okay, maybe I could revisit coding just for my sake, for a weekend thing, just to see how it works now, and just run through like some JavaScript or something, or like some course, and see what I can come up with on my own now when everything's easier. If we are talking about, hey, kids today have it easier and younger developers have it easier, maybe I should take a look at it and take my own advice and take a stab at it.
It's not necessarily easier, it's just different. So it depends at which time of maturity you adopt the technology. So I was lucky to adopt, let's say, when I graduated, when I was in my university, I was doing PHP. And I was doing PHP because I figured it out, it was easy, and yeah, why not do PHP? And then a friend of mine told me, yeah, you should try .NET. And I was like, but Java is now a bigger thing. Nobody likes .NET. .NET is slow. Yeah, but just try .NET. So I tried .NET. And it was, back then it was ASP.NET. And basically it worked. I liked it more than PHP, so I kind of did it. It was already in a sort of a mature phase. If I was introduced to it like 5 years earlier, maybe I would have said, okay, this is crap. I don't want to work with this. This doesn't work. This is slow. It lacks everything. And Microsoft does have a technology, does have a tendency to see what other people are doing and then just say, okay, this is good. I'm going to borrow this. This is good. We're going to implement this. This is great. We're going to take this from here and things like that. So the way that .NET has evolved in the last 20 years, it was from a platform that was subpar to Java. It's now, I would say, one of the leading platform, if not the best platform for writing backend. Of course, I'm going to be the first one to say that the choice of technology is not necessarily distinctive. You can, the same way you can write a good book in English and a good book in Spanish, in the same way you can deliver great code in Python and you can deliver great code in .NET. There are some things that Python specializes for a little bit more, some things that .NET is a little bit better for. But in general, if you know your tool and if you know what you are doing, you can do amazing stuff with almost any language. So I'm not here to say this language is better, this language is worse, and I hate all of those discussions. If you know what you're doing, you can do well in any programming language and in any tool. Saying that, I really like the way .NET is developing and where it got to now. It's fast, it's modular, it's interesting, and for me it's still easy to use, and the things that they are doing now with Blazor is something that really excites me. So yeah, that's I'm glad I still have some focus to learn about new stuff, and I'm glad that new stuff is exciting and makes life easier.
I have nothing to add. I agree, and it's
Yeah, but my point was that the younger generations don't have it easier. They will also adopt the technology at one point in their lives. They'll be new to it. It's going to be unfamiliar to them. They have to learn it. They have to pick it up. They have to understand it. And over the course of them learning it and understanding it, it will evolve at the same time. So they will also have frustrations from, yeah, but when I started doing this, it was like that, and now it's like this, it's different, and so on. So it's the delta is still there. It's not from A to B, but from B to C. But there's always a delta from the point where you enter the I'm going to say industry in a lack of a better word, till the point where you're comfortable with it. There's always the change of technology that's going to...
Yeah, that's true. And now, as you've been saying this, I was thinking how the handover, for the lack of a better word, between design and development changed as well. Whereas before it was, oh, I have an idea for a website, and then we would draw it and then code it. And now there's so much more tools available to go from a design to code. And especially with the no-code tools and stuff. Why are you shaking your head? What do you... No, no, no.
I have a
Okay.
story. Go.
I I don't know. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, tell your story. It will come back to me.
So my story is about the transition of development to design to development. So nowadays, if you do a design, let's say in Figma or something, that's it. You do it, and I go in there. I can see all of the CSS properties. It pretty much even writes me out the basic CSS. It's not best, but it's doable, and it's enough for me to get enough information that I can write it as I like to. Uh, Back in the day, when I was working at my first, I was still a student, so this is around 206, let's say, maybe 207, something like that. I was working in a company where we developed websites. And we had a designer who drew websites in Photoshop. And then he would give you the Photoshop. And one of the jobs was to
Slicers.
slice it. Slicers. So, for those of you who don't know what slicers are the people that take a PSD design and then get you the resources from that PSD design that you need to make it possible to deliver what you want. Let me give you a basic example. Today, if you need a gradient, then you go to CSS and you write a gradient, and you have a gradient, and it's all nice. Back in the day, if you needed a gradient, you would cut a image that was as long as you needed the gradient for, and 1 pixel wide, and then put the background color to be the finishing color of the gradient, put the image as a background, and repeat X if you wanted a vertical gradient. So you actually had to place an image and repeat it for X time because there was no way of doing that with CSS. There were float was a new thing, so there were really things that were difficult to achieve, and you very often ended up positioning divs absolutely, and then cutting this part of image I need as a background image for this div so that the whole thing could work. And it has to be sliced in pixel perfect so that it shows
This is where
accurate.
pixel
And
perfect
then when
comes from.
responsive design, yeah, this is where pixel perfect comes from. And then, for example, we had, I remember we had some sort of a dashed line which we wanted to dash, but as it had a top gradient and a lower gradient, we need to divide that in 3 divs so that you can get the gradient on top, then you have the content, and then the gradient on bottom, and then the pixels wouldn't land on each other. You would have a dashed line of 1 pixel, one empty space, and then the 2 pixels would hit. And you couldn't guess that. You had to write JavaScript code to see if this div dot height equals divided by 2 equals 0, then...
You're triggering me again.
So it was fun
You're
time.
triggering me again.
Yes. Do
No.
you want to hear more?
No, I don't want to hear more. I remembered this all too well. And yeah, I even forgot about slicing. One more. Okay, one more. One more
This is
horror
not about
story.
slicing. This is more about coding. You know how nowadays you have Ajax. You make an asynchronous request to a server returns data, and then you update your DOM and you see the data on the screen and everybody's happy, right? Yeah, there was a time when that wasn't a thing. But you wanted it to be a thing. So the way you would go around it is you would put an iframe element in your page. And then when you needed to make a request, you would actually have a URL that you would construct the address with the query string and all of the parameters that you need to send. Put that URL to be the URL of the iframe. The iframe was either 1 pixel or 0 pixels, 0 times 0 pixels. But it would load the content, and then you would have to use JavaScript to go into that iframe, get the content it loaded, and place it into the div where you wanted it placed. Woohoo! I know we were doing a project when we were still students. We were doing a project, and my friend found this idea on the internet, and then he figured out how it works, and then he built his own library around it. Luckily, I work with him today. Apparently he's an amazing developer. But when he did that and when he showed that, we were all like, "Whoa, how the hell did you do that? That can't be
Magic.
done." Like literally
Yeah,
magic.
it was. I remember what I wanted to tell you about the handover between designers and developers and slicers, and I think slicers was a great bit of history. And I don't know who will get any value out of this episode, to be honest, because it's just you and me talking about past traumas most of the part. And but if anybody reached this point, please do subscribe, do the thing with the bell and the thing, and let us know. But there was a great example of Airbnb when they built their own design system in Sketch, and then from Sketch, and I think they were using Zeppelin, then they translated that into, there was a plugin that then translated that into some code. I don't remember which one anymore. And there was a great article called Painting with Code, where basically the idea was that the designers would be using the design system with already pre-made components, and then developers don't have to think about it anymore. They know that this is the component that we are reusing across the site, and then code works and everything works on the fly, which really speed up the thing. And now with Figma and everything, it's even faster. But there was this kind of transition period from slicers and then doing this kind of halfway work, but then also mobile phones came into play, and I kind of missed half of that because me being as I am, always doing some random different things, at one point I kind of stopped completely noticing and talking about the code, attending any talks and meetups and workshops and anything. And I went into more of a design thing. And for a year, I was doing stand-up comedy only, and then went more into UX. And then a new big project came to build a mobile app, and I came back into that bit of design. I was like, oh, I have no idea how anything works. And it was like 2 years, not even 2 years passed, and a lot of stuff was kind of brand new, and then I had to bullshit my way through this. I was like, yeah, of course I know Sketch and Zeppelin, and yes. How could I not as a designer? Sketch is, by the way, Mac only software, and I did not own a Mac. And I kind of thought, you know what? I know Photoshop, and I've been doing this for so long. How hard can it be to figure out a new piece of software for design? But I had to invest in a device that can run it, so I can start the job. So I was like, okay, I need to be out of pocket for $2,000 or whatever to buy a device to work on something that I never touched before, and I'm starting Monday. That was a bit of a an outstanding move on my part, but dumbass that I was, but I made it work.
I don't know, but one thing, I cannot let this episode slide without saying one thing, and that is how much if we're talking just about websites, but even web applications, but primarily websites, how much the desired output has changed. So back in the day, you wanted to put everything that you can into a website. So everything had to be animated. Everything had to, if you can put a sound for it to play, it had to be a sound. If you can embed a video, yeah, go for it. Embed an MP3 in the background, yes. I remember we did a website for a steakhouse where the client came and said, I don't care, I know that you're going to do a great job. The only thing I want to see is when people come to my website that they hear the sizzling of meat on a barbecue, because that's going to make them hungry. He was actually right. We had, when you land on that page, it would play you the sound of meat sizzling, and it would make you hungry. And out of all of this desire for everything to be animated and glittery and GIFs and there was an HTML tag marquee. Whoever is listening this and remember that there's an HTML tag for marquee. Marquee, if you put the text in marquee tag, it goes like
from left to right
across the
yeah
screen, and then it starts again. That was awesome. So, and then you had GeoCities. GeoCities were a platform where you could easily build your websites, and all the websites were like this. They were glittery and had all of the colors and had everything. So yeah, I couldn't let this episode slide without mentioning GeoCities and all of the beauty geocities.com brought to the world and
That is where I
yeah.
hosted the
And
website
then at
for the
one point
girlfriend.
somebody said,
Not a girlfriend, the girl, not a girlfriend. Don't get me wrong. I did not have a girlfriend, but for the girl, is was there, and I actually in my first ever talk that I did for a big conference, my first presentation slide with my name was in the same design style. And I'll see if I can share this here with when I will be editing. Maybe I can put in a slide here. But it was actually to show like, oh, I'm a designer. And then for whatever reason, I've been doing conferences since then for 10 years. And I still reuse the same slide to show people that I've been a designer for 20 years. And that was, yeah, that's a great piece of history. And we didn't even touch today on the topic of Flash, and I'm just going to mention that I'm aware of this. I did this on purpose because that triggers even more trauma, and I'm not even going to talk about it, but I'm just going to acknowledge that it existed for a while, and it was cool for some games. There were some amazing games on it, and then it died, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing that it went away.
as much as the technology has changed, and as much as we actually now have different tech stacks and different possibilities that things can, the projects actually remained really, really similar. So now you have Agile. Before you didn't really, but you still had like, weekly meetings with progress updates and things like that. Maybe the budgeting part and the planning part was done a little bit differently than it is now, but I was at that time still new, so I didn't know/care about that part as much. But basically, the concept of a project, of you having somebody with the idea, then you having to break it down, then you having to write it out, then you having to approve it, then you having to build it, then you having to test it, then you having to do iterations. Regardless of all of the changes in the technology, and regardless of all of the updates in it, that part is really, really similar like it was 20 years ago. And maybe now somebody's gonna come and say, you don't know what you're talking about, now it's completely different, we have all of these new methodologies in project management. From my point of view, and it's limited, of course, it's very, very similar. You always have people that know what they're talking about. You very often end up working with some manager that should know what they're talking about, but don't really. You always end up working with somebody on the project that was just put there, listen to this, you're going to help them out, and they are completely unaware of what's happening. You always end up working with some amazing people that can actually deliver. So that part, regardless of the technology, regardless of everything, you always have the same thing. And that's why Dilbert has been funny for the last, 45 years, because nothing has really changed.
Yeah, that's true. It's always funny because projects and project management have been a thing since the pyramids were built. They also had to have a project management back then. And I'm sure that people who were lugging stones hated our boss as well. And maybe now we can light it up with, after a few beers. But now let's give me your bad joke of the day.
My bad joke of the day. My favorite month is July. Why July? I didn't lie.
Yeah, I'm trying hard not to laugh, but I love bad jokes, so they always light me up.
Before saying yours, if you like bad jokes, there is a YouTube clip from, I think it's called College Humor or something, where they bring Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell into
Playground
a
insults. It's
studio.
BBC One.
Yeah, and they have to talk. They have to say dad jokes to one another without the other one laughing. Whoever laughs loses a point. I don't like Will Ferrell. I don't like Mark Wahlberg, but that clip is actually awesome. So I highly
It's
advise it to
BBC
watch it.
One Playground Insults, and they have multiple episodes with different actors. They usually do it when they're promoting a movie. And I don't know what you have against Marky Mark, but I will take that offline. And my terrible joke of the day is singing in the shower is fun until you get soap in your mouth. Then it's a soap opera. Oh man, it's horrible. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening.
You win this one.
I think
You
we are
win this
both
one.
losers here.
Yeah, but I've learned to live with that over the course of the past 38 years or so.
Great. Thanks everybody for listening. If you lasted this long, I'm sorry if we insulted you with our bad jokes. Hope we didn't. And thank you for listening our meandering on the history of technology and what we had to go through. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody. Say bye, Mario. This is an audio podcast.
Bye. This is an audio podcast. I can't wait.
Stop waving to the listeners.
Yeah, that was me saying bye. I'm
Let's
waving
try.
to the
Let's try
listeners,
once
yeah.
again. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.